What is the significance of that shirt? This right here is the very first band shirt I ever bought. Panic at the Disco. But why am I sharing that with you today, and why am I uploading on a Monday? Well, if you guys did not know, today is actually my 20th birthday. It's absolutely insane to me that I'm actually 20 years old now. Like, where did the time go? It had me thinking about my childhood and just growing up, and pretty much what shaped me to be who I am today. And obviously a huge part of that is music. So for today's video, my birthday special, if you will, I am going to take a little trip down memory lane and reminisce with you guys the bands and artists that I used to listen to growing up until now. Basically the evolution of my music taste. So my life began on June 20th, 1996, but I obviously didn't start listening to music until I was about 5 years old. And even that's pretty young. But the year 2000 is the first time where I really got into a particular artist.
People all around, you got to. From the left to the right, make noise. Here we go now, come on. What? AC's in the house, here we go.
Please tell me you guys have heard that song before. If you're anywhere near my age, I'm sure you've heard it, or maybe you even had your own little obsession with Aaron Carter back in the day. He was like the Justin Bieber of the early 2000s. And I actually have memories of myself, you know, like 5, 6 years old, down in my basement. I would play his CD, Aaron's Party, on our big stereo, and I would like just lip sync to all the songs and put on my own little concerts. My parents actually took me to see him in concert when I was like 5 years old, but I really don't remember it at all, but it happened. So that was the very first artist I got into music-wise. But let's fast forward to 2004. Now, not much has changed being a little kid, but there was a new rising male pop singer becoming famous at the time that you know I got hooked on.
I don't want another pretty face. I don't want just anyone to hold. I don't want my love to go to waste. I want you and you're beautiful, so you're the one I wanna chase. You're the one I wanna hold.
Pretty sure you can see why that was my next obsession, but yes, I knew every single word to all the songs on his album Beautiful Soul. I had the biggest crush on him. I had posters all over my room of him. I was just so in love. So it was like the same type of obsession with Aaron Carter, but I was a little bit older, could kind of understand the music a little bit more. Me and my friends were all obsessed with him. Me and my cousins were, like just everyone I knew was in love with him. Now let's move on to 2006. Now I would have been about 10 years old here, and this is the very first time I was ever introduced to Panic at the Disco. I remember this exact day. My best friend Lexi, who used to live down the street from me, she had come over to my house. She wanted to show me this like new song that she really liked. She had seen the music video on MTV. So when she was at my house, she went on the computer, went to mtv.com to try and find this video. It was on the homepage because this video had just dropped, and it was the video for But It's Better If You Do.
But I'm afraid that I'm affected.
I love this song. This was the very first Panic song that I fell in love with, the very first song I ever heard by them, and it's still one of my top favorites by them of all time. But I remember at the time watching the music video, I didn't understand it at all. It was in a strip club, but I had no idea what that even was. But I just remember thinking that the lead singer was super cute. I was like, oh my god. So I remember like downloading that song onto my iPod, and that was pretty much it. Like I just didn't even think about looking up any of their other music. I didn't really know how to at the time. I don't even think I had an iPod. I think it was just like an MP3 player before like I had an iPod, so I didn't really know like how to like, you know, go and actually buy music or like do any of that. So I just kind of forgot about the band, but I liked that song. So in 2006, 2007, I was still into like the same type of stuff, you know, Jesse McCartney's newer album, I was still into that stuff. But I was starting to broaden out a little bit more. I got into Fergie a lot for some reason. I really liked her song Glamorous. I can safely say I will never forget how to spell that word. In 2008, I was a really awkward 6th grader, and I still didn't really know what to listen to music-wise. I just kind of liked whatever was popular. But I do remember hearing 9 in the afternoon on the bus, like on the radio. I remember that was like a really big song at the time, so I went and downloaded that one, of course, because I did have an iPod at this time. I bought it on iTunes because I bought just like whatever was in the charts. I bought it, and I remember having that song by Panic on my iPod, but I still didn't like look into their other music because I still didn't really know how to. So in the meantime, this is something I'm not proud of, but I actually had for maybe a couple months a brief country phase.
How do you like me now?
I know, it's hard to believe, but my dad actually took me to a Toby Keith concert. I got really into his music for some reason because at this time, you know, at this age, I just liked whatever everyone else liked, and I was surrounded by fans of his music at that concert, so I was like, okay, this is my shit. And I just downloaded a bunch of his songs, I got into it, I was like, this is awesome, this is my new thing. But thank God that was short-lived. But my next phase was my top 40 phase. So this is when I would listen to anything and everything on the radio, and that's what I would download, and that's pretty much all I knew there was. Like, I didn't know there was anything else but top 40.
I got a feeling.
She hold me down every time I hit her. When I get right, I promise that we gon' live it up. You're hot, then you're cold, you're yes, then you're no. When you see my face, up against you hell, up against you hell.
You guys recognize any of those songs? Yeah, that was like everything that was played in like 2009, and that's pretty much all I even knew there was. But just wait for it, the summer of 2009 is when I finally took the time to actually discover Panic at the Disco. So I remember looking through my iPod because I wanted to find more music to listen to because I was kind of getting sick and tired of like the same old top 40 stuff. Finally, I was kind of waking up. But I remember seeing the 2 Panic songs and I was like, oh, I should look up more of their music. You know, it finally clicked in my head that maybe I should actually look up more of their songs. So at this point, I actually knew how to use Google and I knew how to use YouTube and like search for stuff. So I typed in Panic at the Disco, and this was the very first video I watched of them.
What a beautiful wedding, what a beautiful wedding, says a bridesmaid too, oh yes, but what a shame the poor groom's bride is a whore. I chimed in with a haven't you people ever heard of.
As you can see, that was an acoustic performance of I Write Sins, and this is when I just fell in love completely. After that, you know, I started watching all these other videos of them on YouTube, like all their music videos, their interviews, live performances, just everything. I became full-blown obsessed, and I went out and bought both of their albums, learned every song, learned all the lyrics. That whole summer, I was literally in love. I finally found the band for me. So in 2009, I was 12 turning 13, and that summer I turned 13. And right after that, of course, Panic splits up. I was absolutely devastated. Like, I was heartbroken. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I finally found a band that I really love, you know, something that was like mine. Like, I was just so into it. I was so excited to see them live and just everything. And then Ryan and John announced that they're leaving. And at this point in time, we didn't really know the future of the band. Like, Brendan and Spencer had said they were going to continue on, but you know, when a band announces that, it's just kind of like, what the fuck, you know, they're broken up. I took it pretty seriously, and I was just so mad. I was like, ugh! Like, why didn't I get into them years ago? You know, I was just, oh man, it sucks so bad. But there was good news in sight for me, because at my actual birthday party, I remember my cousin went there, and she told me that she was going to see Blink-182 and that Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco were opening, and I'm like, wait, what? Panic just broke up, what are you talking about their opening? And at this time, yeah, I know how to use the internet, but I didn't really keep up with like tours or anything. Like, I didn't even know, like, I didn't use Twitter or anything, so I didn't know anything about band updates unless you like went and stalked their website. So I just didn't know. I was so out of the loop. But she had told me, and I was like, dude, I am going with you. Like, it was gonna be just Brendan and Spencer and then 2 members to fill in for the other guys, but I was like, I'm going. So me, my cousin, and her friend all went to this show, and it was amazing. This was the first time I was exposed to Blink-182. I loved it. This was also the first time I got into Fall Out Boy. Soon after that show, not long at all, guess who breaks up? Fucking Fall Out Boy. And this I did not know about, because I remember going into Hot Topic, I bought Fully Ado, and I bought Believers Never Die on CD, and I was about to buy a Fall Out Boy t-shirt, and I couldn't find any Fall Out Boy t-shirts. I was like, do you guys have Fall Out Boy t-shirts? And she was like, oh, don't you know they broke up? What? I was just like, I felt so dumb because I didn't know about it. I was still out of the loop. Like I said, you know, you really had to like check the band's website to figure out that kind of stuff, and I didn't, you know, I just didn't even know. So I was devastated about that because I literally just missed Fall Out Boy. I hadn't discovered them until 2009, just saw them live, and then they break up like before I really got a chance to dive into their discography and really like, you know, really get into them. Like I knew songs and stuff, but I didn't really get into them until later on. But I guess the rest of 2009, also 2010, I was into like bands of that scene, you know, like Fueled by Ramen bands, and other like cheesy pop punk bands like We the Kings and all those type of bands. And then actually in the summer of 2010, I bought Green Day Rock Band, you know, the video game. And this is when I first kind of got into Green Day, because I knew like some of their biggest songs, so I just kind of like bought the game, and this is how I kind of found all their other music, surprisingly. I had like a mini Green Day phase at that point. I just loved it so much. Loved American Idiot, like the whole album. I was just so into it. Even their older stuff, I just loved it all around. I was like, this is another band for me. And I would watch their live performances in the documentary, and I just like wanted to see them live so damn bad.
This is how I'm supposed to feel. Everybody! Ladies and gentlemen!
And you can see why I wanted to see them live. They're a fucking killer ass live band. Hopefully someday I'll actually get to. But around the same time, along with Green Day, I was getting into other bands like Weezer, The Killers, Oasis. Then the end of 2010, also in the beginning of 2011, which would have been like 8th, 9th grade, is when I started to get into classic rock. And this primarily was the Beatles. You know, I remember actually going to my dad and asking him like to give me music to listen to. I was like, what was popular in your day? Like, tell me about classic rock, tell me about the Beatles. And he did a really great job at educating me. I became obsessed with the Beatles. I know literally every single song, and they have hundreds. I became really obsessed with them. Like, I loved absolutely everything they did. Like, every era of them I thought was just amazing. They were so inspiring and just fantastic musicians. I was like, this is the best band in the entire world. But along with the Beatles, you know, I got into other bands like the Eagles, Pink Floyd, Fleetwood Mac, The Who, the Beach Boys, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Neil Young, Eric Clapton, Bruce Springsteen, James Taylor, Queen, all those type of classic rock bands and musicians from, you know, the 70s and the 80s. But also at this time in my life, I was kind of really hard-headed, and I wouldn't listen to anything that wasn't like rock music. And this isn't something I'm proud of. It's not good to have a closed mind with music, and I know that's ridiculous, but that's just kind of the mindset I was having at this point in my life. I didn't really know what to think. And then actually in the summer of 2011, right after my freshman year, I finally got to go see Panic at the Disco at their own live show. They had just come out with Vices and Virtues. I was hella stoked on it. I absolutely loved it. I was still obsessed with them. So my love for them was still there at this point. But I'd say in like 2012, I was kind of into like really weird stuff, like hippie music almost. This was thanks to my dad, because he was really into like jam bands and stuff like Grateful Dead. And I also got into a local band called Rusted Root. Some of you guys might recognize this song. So yeah, I was into like that type of stuff. Along with that, like bands like Sublime. I was just kind of listening to different stuff that like people my age weren't really listening to at all. So let's move on to 2013. This would have been my junior year of high school, and I remember this exact day. It was in February. Fucking Fall Out Boy finally came back. They literally said in their coming back post that this isn't a reunion because we never broke up. And I just, oh my god, I was so excited. It was like unreal to me because I kind of like forgot about them as a band because they were so inactive for like 4 years. And like I said, you know, they had broken up right before I really had a chance to really get into them. But when they came back, it was just like a rebirth of, you know, me getting into them again. Like it was just, it felt so new again, and it was just great. It was like a really great feeling. I got to see them live in May. It was at a really small venue that like they're never gonna be able to play again because they're way too famous, but thankful I got to see that show. It was amazing. And then a few months later, I went to see them in Cleveland with my friend, and I actually got a meet and greet pass. I got to meet them. I was crying my eyes out right before this picture was taken, but that was one of the best concert experiences of my life. At that show, Panic at the Disco opened up, and guess who else opened up? 21 Pilots. Yes, folks, that's the very first time I was exposed to 21 Pilots music. I thought it was so weird, but after seeing them live, they completely won me over. I decided to buy tickets to see them a few months later in December in my own city, and when I saw that show, I was just like, this is my band. And this was way before they were super famous, so I just like kind of claimed them as my own at that time. But actually, I forgot to mention, about 2 months before that 21 Pilots show that I went to see them like at their own concert, I actually went to the House Party tour, and this was around the time where I was really getting into A Day to Remember, because that tour was actually A Day to Remember, Pierce the Veil, All Time Low, and The Wonder Years. And that was at the time where I was getting into all those bands. I actually met All Time Low right before that show, and I was really getting into their music, and as well as Pierce the Veil, other bands like Sleeping with Sirens and all those. I was kind of like really getting into at the time. And you guys know that A Day to Remember and All Time Low are some of my most favorite bands of all time at this moment. So that year, like 2013, when I finally saw them live, just kind of kick-started my liking for those type of bands. Then over the next like year or so, I saw A Day to Remember a couple more times. I saw 21 Pilots again in 2014. And I was also getting into like harder bands, you know, like Bring Me the Horizon of Mice and Men. They're not like that hard, but for me, you know, they were a lot harder. But I was into like those type of bands, and I actually got to go to the very first annual APMAs, and I got to see pretty much all my favorite bands perform, like All Time Low, A Day to Remember, 21 Pilots, Fall Out Boy. I actually got to witness the Thanks Pete moment in front of my eyes, like what the fuck. So that was like honestly amazing. And also that same summer is when I started my YouTube channel. Liking all those bands actually sparked this thing here. I also went to Monumentour that summer. I saw Paramore and Fall Out Boy. I got to meet Fall Out Boy again. At this time, I was like at the height of being a really huge Fall Out Boy fan. It's kind of embarrassing, but whatever. And then around the same time, I was kind of getting into like Tumblr, and I'd always see people reblog like GIFs of certain bands. One of those bands was The Story So Far, and this is kind of why I decided to look them up, because I kept seeing like GIFs of their live set and like their music videos on my dashboard on Tumblr, so I decided to finally look them up. Fell in love with their music. I also went to my very first Warped Tour that summer. Got to see a ton of my favorite bands. It was just like the greatest experience. And this is really when I started to fall in love with like the scene of like smaller pop punk bands. And then I started a series on my channel called Reacting to Bands, where you guys would send me bands and I would literally, you know, look them up, listen to their music, record myself reacting to it, and kind of give an overall opinion after that first listen. And that's actually how I found a lot of bands like Real Friends, State Champs, even Beartooth and Issues are included in that. And then Issues is one of my favorite bands of all time now, so that's pretty cool. I can also proudly say that from 2013 on, I've had a pretty open mind when it comes to music. I give more things a chance. Like I got into the 1975. I got to see Hoodie Allen open up for Fall Out Boy last year, so I got into a lot of his stuff. But in the last year or so is when I really dove into like modern pop punk, and that would be with bands like Neck Deep and Knuckle Puck, who I both saw on Warped Tour last summer. And then obviously more recently bands like Turnover, Law Dispute, Basement, Citizen, Moose Blood, Like Pacific, all those type of bands. I've just been giving a lot more stuff a listen lately, because there's a lot of really great bands that are kind of underrated in my opinion. If you missed a recent video I did where I talked about 10 bands I can't stop listening to, be sure to check that out, because every single band on that list is worthy of giving a chance. Don't have a closed mind. You really shouldn't like constrain yourself to just 3 bands, you know. Don't be afraid to broaden your music taste. You never know what you're gonna like. I think the biggest thing that I can thank when it comes to finding new bands and new music is not just like the internet and then from other people, but also going to concerts. You know, going to shows is like my favorite thing in the entire world. It's so easy to find new bands, like whoever's opening you might fall in love with. And then of course Warped Tour is a really great way to find new bands as well. But I really do think going to concerts has played a huge role when it comes to just finding new music and really enjoying music and appreciating it altogether. So I hope this video wasn't too long or too boring for you guys. I just thought it would be kind of fun to share with you like what kind of stuff I've been listening to ever since I was a kid, and like how that's changed over the years. And I'm sure my music taste is bound to change over the next few years as well, but this is what kind of made me who I am today. I am now 20 years old, and music is the one thing that inspires me in all aspects. It's given me everything. It's given me friends. It's given me a YouTube channel. It's given me an audience of over 10,000 people. Like, what even is my life? And I honestly don't regret a thing, except for maybe the country phase. But honestly, I can't believe I'm 20 years old today. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed learning about my music taste over the last couple of years. The least you could do is just give me a thumbs up. Come on, it's my birthday. Why don't you guys let me know down in the comments below what kind of stuff you guys have been listening to lately and what you used to listen to and how that's changed over the years. But I truly appreciate you guys watching this. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new here, and I will see you guys next time.